Hello, everyone. Today I'm going to talk about communication styles. Our success in life, both personal and professional, is largely determined by how well we interact with others. To better understand how we communicate and how we can be more effective when communicating with others, it is useful to find out what our communication style is. You've probably noticed it's very easy to get along with certain people. You almost instantly and effortlessly connect with the other person, and the communication just flows. Unfortunately, with most people, communication takes more effort. You cannot quite understand where the other person is coming from or what he or she really wants. Being in IT, we need to interact with various business groups and cross functional teams. So it is important to identify the various personality styles and a way to persuade them in order to be that great business partner. Wouldn't it be nice if people had their needs written all over them? If we knew if this person needed more details and this person is looking for a bit more reassurance and that person wants to work by himself. But that's not real world. Or is it? Maybe if we had a way or a model to decode that. And that's what I'm going to focus about in today's session. To look at different types of people and their communication styles, let's try to understand this matrix up here. There are four fundamental styles of communication: the driver, expressive, amiable, and analytical. We are all a mix of all of them, but let's see if you can spot which one is the most descriptive of yourself. On your left side, we have the driver and analytical styles who are more task and facts oriented. These are the thinkers. And on your right side, expressive and amiables represent the people and feelings side of the model. And it doesn't mean that driver and analytical won't focus on people and feelings. It's just that they prefer to focus more on tasks and vice versa. Let's say if I were an expressive or an amiable, people oriented, I might say to you, "Hello, how are you? Can you get me that report, please?" Versus a driver or analytical who is more task focused might say to you, "Can you get me that report? And oh, by the way, how are you?" Getting right to the business. So you see a slight nuance between tasks and people. But then we divide the bottom half from the top half. The analytical and amiable styles are what we call reserved behavioral styles. They're naturally reserved and they prefer things the way they are. They rely more on their five senses, meaning they like to have as much information as possible before making any decisions. They're generally slower in making decisions, but they usually tend to get it right the first time. On the top half, we have the active styles, the driver and expressive. They are focused more on the future, how things could be, constantly changing and looking forward and moving forward. And instead of wanting all the details and relying on their five senses, they rely more on their gut instincts. The driver who is more task focused do it based on the facts they know. Doesn't mean they need every fact you give them. Once they have enough information, boom, they make a decision. Expressives also make decisions very quickly, but theirs are much more impulsive and intuitive. Let's dive into the broader personality styles of each of this type so we can understand how to deal with and influence them. Starting with the fiery red, with the driver. They are direct and strong-willed, but they can be impatient and blunt at times. They love action and challenges. They prefer to think about big picture, perform high-level planning, and leave the implementation details to rest. In an organization, these are typically your CEO types, your executive, senior leadership team, and so on. They like results. So a way to influence them is by getting to the point quickly. Now, they like the detail, but they don't have time for all the details, which is a bit of a dichotomy. So don't beat around the bush. Give them executive summary and bullets and let them drive the rest. Let them ask into the detail. Tell them you have the details and you must absolutely have it with you. Never say you have the details when you don't have it with you. Also, driver styles love to win as they are generally competitive in nature. So letting them know what they would be losing if they don't hear you out would immediately grab their attention. Under pressure, they can appear to have lack of concern for others and seem to be a bit insensitive. But that's mostly because they're so focused on their task. The biggest fear is loss of control, as they like to be in charge of things and in control of things. Moving to the next personality style, the sunshine yellow. These are expressives. They are optimistic, sometimes way too optimistic, full of enthusiasm, sociable and persuasive. They are fast and outgoing, but they're people-oriented. They are feelers. Expressives thrive on interpersonal relationship, which makes them excellent collaborators. In an organization, these are typically your sales and marketing people. They like fun. So how to influence them? Well, don't just send them a long, detailed email, as they may never check their email and certainly not read it if it's a long one. Instead, they would appreciate if you drop by their desk or office or give them a quick phone call and then follow up with an email. And when you speak to them, make it a bit more fun and outgoing. Make them talk. They like to talk. Ask them about things they are passionate about. So make it a bit more lighthearted before you get down to business. Expressives can appear disorganized, but that's because they're so concerned about people and feelings that the details sort of fall through the cracks. They fear social rejection and can never see them outside looking in. They like to be surrounded by people and be heard. Amiable, earth green amiables, just like expressive styles, are people-oriented. They like people, but because they're reserved, as we saw in the Matrix earlier, they mostly like people they know, such as their close friends, family members, and some of the co-workers they gel with. They are calm and steady. They love peace and harmony. They like close and personal relationships. These are really your team players, very trustworthy and great listeners. It's very important for them that nobody feels out of place or uncomfortable with the people they're working with. So a way to influence them is to sit down, understand them, and have a one-on-one conversation. Once you earn their trust and they start liking you, they will go out of their way to help and support you. Principle of consensus is another useful way to persuade them, as they generally like people. Under pressure, though, amiables can be seen as too willing or overly accommodating to people's requests, as they tend to be avoiding personal conflicts. And they fear loss of stability because they do not like too much change. Remember, harmony is very important to them. Moving to the last personality style, the cool blue analyticals. They like things to be perfect. They're very logical and cautious when performing things. And they like the details. For example, if someone says sales are positive this quarter, they're likely to think, what does positive mean? Is it 5.2%, 8.7%? Give me a number. They are driven by details and by compliance and by doing things right. Uh, they tend to move from point A to point B, just like the driver style does, but they're going to be more focused on what happens between A and B. They like to be doing things step by step and in detail. So if A.1 or A.2 is not correct, they may never get to point B. Now, since they are driven by details and are reserved, a good way to influence them is actually through written media, through email, and they do appreciate the detail. Under pressure, they can be overly critical and skeptical, but it's really important to understand that they can be critical of themselves too. They fear criticism of their own work as well, as they believe so highly in quality work. So you can imagine now what happens when someone from sales department, let's say an expressive style, calls someone in the technical department who is more analytical oriented and says, "Can you give me a quick estimate in 2 hours?" Now, these people down here don't do quick estimates. They like to do things thoroughly and properly, and that takes time. So you see, such a message can frustrate them quite a lot. All right, here are some final thoughts. Remember that you are a combination of all 4 styles with varying degrees. You usually have one dominant style that you're most comfortable with, and there's usually a secondary style that you can resort to. There's no specific style you can say is better than the other. As you can see from the examples in the previous slides, it is very clear that you can be successful with any style. All you need is to be self-aware, understanding your stakeholders' perspective, and making slight adjustments to your communication style to meet where your stakeholder is and based on the situation. So identify your preferred style of communication and flex your style where necessary. So my question to all of you now is, which personality type are you? Are you predominantly red, yellow, green, or blue? And that's important to understand because you will tend to communicate from your own preference. But what needs to happen if you want to really influence people is that you need to adjust your style. You need to flex your style to wherever your stakeholder is, whether it's your manager, your colleague, a senior executive, a business user, or even one of your family members. Wherever that person is that you want to influence, adapt your style, and you'll be able to see success. Thank you.